Hi, everybody, and welcome to this webinar where we will be looking at optimizing digital processes. We still have some people coming in, so we'll just do a slow start here. Some practical information. This webinar is being recorded and all participants will get a link to the recording afterwards. If you have questions, there is a question functions in your app. Please click on that one to ask questions, and we'll get back to you at the end. We'll have a Q&A session. We're also using Mentimeter. So there's a QR code down left on your screen if you scan that with your cell phone, or if you want to open it on your PC or Mac and enter the code to menti.com. We have a couple of questions for the audience. So if you could please have a look at those, and we'll also have a look at those questions at the end and see how you answered. Today, I have two guests from Sweet Systems. I have Marcus Evers and Eric Trillin. So welcome, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, good to have you. Both of you have more than 20 years experience in digital. So I'm really looking forward to hearing your part of the presentation.
Yes.
I will let you introduce Sweet Systems and yourself in a couple of minutes. I'll do an intro. But first, let's look at the first questions. We asked, what business area are you in? And we see some results coming up here. So we are finance, we are technology, energy solutions, sales, interesting. So we have people from different areas listening in on this. So that's good. That's always exciting to have people from different areas. Okay, so I will first give a quick intro. First, about Signicat. Our purpose is to create a trusted digital world. So we build a technology for people to trust each other in a digital world. We offer these as services, and we are working with what we call the identity lifecycle, which is everything from identity proofing. This is the first time you meet somebody online, you need to prove who you are. Authentication, that's when you come back, which needs to be, of course, a much smoother process than the initial onboarding. We do user management, meaning authorizations, giving different users different authorizations to different systems. Attribute enrichments is interesting. This is both validating information like address and access to account and things like that, but also checking, is this user, for example, a PEP, which could be interesting in an onboarding process. And then last but not least, we have signing and preservation. We do electronic signatures. We have both advanced and qualified signatures. We do electronic seals, and we have a qualified timestamping service. So this is what we mean by the identity lifecycle, and this is what we provide to our customers and partners. Signicat is growing a lot. We have roots in the leading identity regions, the Nordics and Benelux, and we are now more than 400 identity experts. I mentioned the identity journey, but we also do this cross-border. So not only do we do all these different items, but also in different countries. So this is especially interesting for our international customers that operate in multiple countries. So, for example, through one API, we offer access to Bank ID in the Nordics, to NemID/MitID in Denmark, to It's Me, to DigID and IDIN in the Netherlands, etc. So through one API, and that simplifies the work if you work in different regions. We've had 40% year-to-year growth, so we're growing, and I mentioned the EIDs. We have more than 30 EIDs integration, and also we're proud we were recognized by Financial Times as one of the 1,000 fastest growing companies in Europe, one of 8 companies in Norway. We are a qualified trust service provider, meaning we have gone through all the audits. We just had a re-audit because this has to be done every year. We have an auditor coming in, validating our systems. This has to be approved by the national authority on this. So we have the QTSP stamp. We're currently delivering timestamps, but the QTSP, the trust service provider, is mostly about organizational issues, like reporting, like procedures for handling incidents, reporting, etc. Of course, we also have ISO 27001 and SOC 2. To illustrate the growth, these are the latest acquisitions. We did one in 2019, that was IDFI. We did Connectis from the Netherlands in 2020. And we've actually done one new acquisition every month the last 3 months. We did NCAP Security, which is the core of our mobile ID solution. We did Electronic ID, a Spanish company to increase our footprint in Southern Europe, but also get the technology and more identity experts. And then we got just recently acquired Dockerbit, which is in the Baltics, having a different footprint, also a qualified trust service provider. So we're going to talk about onboarding and why do I need to know who you are? Why is this important? It might seem obvious, but there are some really good reasons. And it depends, of course, on your area of business. Of course, it's regulations. If you are in finance, banking, of course, you have to follow the AML directive. So you need to have a very strong identification. So that's one of the reasons you are under regulations. But even if you're not under regulations, you may want to do fraud preventions. And as this article shows, I mean, identity scams have increased a lot, and especially during COVID, where a lot of people have been forced online, and it's become even more important to know who people are to prevent that. And also accountability. For example, if you're a car rental and the car is crashed, well, you need to know who to go back to, same with Airbnb, for example. Or things like meeting places between people. You would really like to know, to be able to get the identity of the other individual if something happens. So several reasons why you need to know who people are. We use the term identity assurance, meaning you establish the assurance of an identity. And what is this? It's about establishing a reasonable assurance that the user is who they claim to be. And reasonable depends on several factors. I mean, I mentioned regulations. In that case, you really need to have a strong identification. If you're looking into the risk or the accountability, it really depends on jurisdiction and what risk you're taking, etc. So you need to, I mean, each organization needs to decide how strong does it need to be. If you look at eIDAS, so eIDAS is EU regulation about identities and trust services. They look at different levels of assurance, low, substantial, and high. The challenge has been up until quite recently, there has been no standard for how to do that. So different countries have done it in different ways, and there hasn't been really a consensus. What does substantial mean? That was changed in July with a new ETSI standard, which my colleague Jon Elnes, he was the editor of that standard, for defining how shall this be done. So it looks at the policy and security requirements for that. So that's a really good step forward. Hopefully that can give an agreement across borders. What does substantial and high mean? This is complex. How do you do it? And I'm not going into details here. We do have several webinars on that if you want to see more details. It's often costly, and it often involves manual steps, which of course we want to avoid. You need to consider the digital maturity of people as well as the trust level. Will people want to do this? We see different countries have different attitude towards digital. And of course, there is privacy, and people have privacy concerns. So this is also a challenge because people are reluctant to share information, and often they don't understand, why do I have to share so much? So in the end, it's about getting the balance right. It's between the cost, the regulatory compliance, and abandonment rates. And I'm going to be talking about the abandonment rates now, because we have done a report which is called the Battle to Onboard. We have done 4 different years on this. We have extended the reach, extended the number of people. So what we have done is that we have gone out to, we have asked regular people about their experiences with signing up to financial services. And one of the questions we asked is also for the audience here. So if you want to scan the QR code and answer that question, that would be great. So we can see where is this audience compared to the results we have. We done, I see the numbers wrong, we did 4,500 interviews in these different countries. and we asked them different things around digital onboarding and related to financial service primarily. So one of the questions we asked was, have you had problems accessing your financial services? And as much as 41% answered yes to that. That is a big number. So a lot of people have had problems during COVID. Branches have been closed, you haven't been allowed to travel and things like that. So this is really, a wake-up call. We need to go digital, and COVID has been a catalyst for that. Despite all the challenges we had with COVID, we have seen a boost of digitization. And then we ask, and that's the same question I asked in the Menti, have you abandoned? And 63% answered, yes, I've abandoned onboarding for financial services. I mean, that's 6 out of 10 people you manage to attract to your websites. You've spent all this marketing, etc. You get the people to your website, and then you lose 6 out of 10 people. That's a very high number. That's also a reason for concern and reason why we really need good services. We got some help calculating, what does this mean in money? And it's about 5 billion euros. So it's a lot of money in this, improving these processes. And we're going to see Switch System talking something about this. Just briefly on, we asked about the user experience. Younger people are more demanding or more spoiled. I don't know exactly how we want to phrase that, but 40% of the Generation Z said, it was difficult or very difficult or even painful to do the onboarding. And we see the numbers drop with age. So I guess, people in my age group are more forgiving. Maybe we're more used to bad user experiences. But at least this is something to take into consideration, especially if you're targeting the younger generation. Okay, so why did people abandon? And these were the main reason. Confusing language. Well, we've all seen that, right? You go to site and you log on and you see all this confusing language. Providing too much personal information, which is a challenge because as a financial institution, you have to ask for all this. And some of that would be education. You need to tell people, well, we are collecting this because we have to follow the anti-money laundering directive. And that's about fighting terrorism and slavery. So that's why we need to collect it. But it is a challenge. Still, a lot of processes require physical information, meaning you need to travel to a branch or you need to print something and put in an envelope. And, this disrupts the process. It costs, it takes time, etc. And also, it was too long. It takes too long, the onboarding. It needs to be more efficient. And also, I changed my mind as one. People starting and they changed their mind, which could be because of these others as well, of course. One interesting finding was looking at the abandonment in different countries. And a surprise was actually, if you look at the Nordics here, the numbers are actually very high. And then we asked ourselves, okay, shouldn't it be so easy in the Nordics? We have BankID, we have the Finnish Trust Network, we have NemID and now MitID in Denmark. It should be, you're just using that to sign up. So we've been discussing this in several panels and so on. So I think one reason is that what's the definition of onboarding? When is onboarding done? Is that when your account is registered in the business system? Or is it when all your assets have been transferred? For example, if I sign up to a new bank, when do I consider onboarding complete? And I would probably consider it complete when all my investment and loans and accounts are transferred. So it's two different steps to that. Also, it's so easy to sign up. So maybe because it's so easy, maybe people start signing up and then change their mind. But it's interesting. To know this, when is the onboarding finished? So it's like I said, it's easy to get it started, but we still need to look at the whole process here, not only looking at the specific onboarding to get you into the business systems. And I think that's a good handover to Marcus from Switch Systems. So I'll hand over to you then and let you talk about your process around this.
Great, Jan-Erik, and of course, thank you everyone who is attending this webinar. And before I continue with today's topic, I will briefly present Sweet Systems. And Sweet was founded in 2010, and we are located and we are founded here in Stockholm. And I think we have users in around 30 countries around the world. And as Jan-Erik mentioned about Signicat, we are also a fast-growing company. So we have today around 50% annual growth. And what we are doing, or what is our mission, and we believe that by empowering businesses and their employees with tools to automate and digitize their customer processes, we help to create smarter and more productive organizations. And what do we mean with that? I'm not going to read all the text here, but I will focus on maybe the result part below. So we think that this will lead to improved customer experience. And that is, as Jan-Erik mentioned and talked about as well. And we think that it will result in fast-moving organization, because it's important today to adapt changes, the requirements for the market's expectations change all the time. And the last part is, how could we help our clients to be efficient and be effective in their organization? And what I think is maybe the most important part is, how can we help and to focus on value creating activities instead of administration when you're facing the customer. Here in Sweden, more than 90% of the population between 20 and 50 years use digital identification. And I think it's the same figures in especially the Nordic countries and in some countries in the Northern Europe as well. The most common one here in Sweden is bank ID. And thanks to digital identification, it's possible to digitize the whole customer process. And yes, you can do this today. A standard process like opening a bank account in a 100% digital way has been possible for a long time. But still, there are a lot of services that a bank provides which still are manually handled. I will soon talk about how we at Sweet, together with Signicat, can provide solutions for digitalization and automation of the customer process. But I will start with an example, and it's an example from, what can I say, real life. A couple of weeks ago, I discovered that I'm not allowed to handle all services, such as contact with authorities or healthcare, with my personal ID for my son, and he's 14 years old. So instead, I asked him to enter the service, and what I didn't think of was that he had a kind of light bank ID to use only for some limited bank services, not for other services where bank ID is required. And that was one that we're looking for now. Anyway, it should be easy for me to just log into my internet bank, I thought, and then upgrade his bank ID. But no, this was not possible at all. The solution was to visit a bank office together with my son and his mother. If it was difficult to find a time for all three of us, I could use a power of attorney. So I had to print that out, sign it, and bring the document to the meeting. And as I said, don't forget your personal ID when we are at the meeting. And this, of course, was not the solution I expected. And after some Googling, I found out that other banks offered the same service, but in a digital way. So my bank had prioritized other services, but not the one I needed help with. As a result of this decision, I had to spend 2 hours away from work, including driving my son to and from school again. In addition, he lost 1.5 hours of lessons. And what did I do during that meeting at the bank. I filled out some forms and I signed them. My son was assisted with downloading the bank ID to his cell phone. And from the bank's perspective, they spent around 30 minutes helping me to solve my problem. So is this an example of good experience? What do you think, Eric?
No, it's not very good, I would say.
No. In that moment, I was thinking of choosing another bank, of course. And another question is, now I have to change slide. I forgot that. So, sorry. Did the bank use the time in a good way? I think there are better ways, better things to do during a face-to-face meeting than administration. Maybe some advice how to invest my savings could be nice. And was this an example of a short and fast process?
Not very fast.
Not very fast. Well, 30 minutes is not so long time, but for me it was more. When I realized I had that problem from the beginning with a bank ID until the meeting, it took two weeks. But let's talk about something else than my example. And for your knowledge, I also have good experiences from a bank, so it's not only this one, this example. But the thing is that most of the companies in the finance sector have the same challenge. There are a lot of forms and there are a lot of documents in a bank. And many of these forms and documents are not handled with digital signing. They are handled manually. And what we help our clients with is to provide a platform where it is possible to digitize all data that are handled by and with the customer. One of the cornerstones that we provide is, as you may have already understood, is that what we call smart digital forms. Instead of filling out a form in the old way, you do it the digital way. Another one is easy access to external data. By that we mean to ask only for the information you don't have about the customer. If information, for example, about signatories is required, pre-fill it instead of letting the customer do it. Process automation. In many cases, you want to use the information from the form to update other systems. And the process for doing that can, of course, be different depending what information and which service that is handled. And the last one, digital signing or digital identification, the key to digitize the whole customer process. But how to choose which forms or which forms to start with? And I think the answer is simple. Let the people meet the customers to decide. They have the knowledge and they are facing the challenges all the time. And finally, let the business do the work, not only decide what to do. Don't start with all forms and processes in one project. Instead, this should be an ongoing work and handled by the business people. Erik, I think it's you now.
My turn.
Your turn.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. We see this slide again. Sorry. I cannot emphasize enough that this tool I'm going to show now, Suite Forms, is a do-it-yourself tool. It is for business people or people who know the processes to create and publish and change and maintain the digital forms themselves. This is to make usually on any company, IT is very busy with core development and stuff, and what we want to do is put this tool into the hands of the business people who knows the process. We have one example, maybe the customer that we work with that have come farthest with this initiative with our toolbox, also the automation part of it. They have digitalized around 200 different digital forms, and it's from onboarding of new customers to credit applications, a lot of forms around AML regulations, and even customer service applications, common questions that can be automated. So again, I just want to emphasize this, what I'm going to show now, it's meant to be put in your hands to create the digital journey yourself. So first, yeah, we have another Menti question here. Please answer that one. So SweetForms overview, it's what you call a do-it-yourself tool. It's easy to get going, a couple of hours education and a little bit self-training, and then you're pretty efficient in creating your digital forms and enable them for digital sign with SigniCut. So you have custom design possibilities. That means that you can customize the design of the forms so they correspond to your other layout of your public page or my page or whatever it can be. This is important. A digital form has 3 types of representations. The web experience, it has a PDF representation that can be used it is used for signing, for example, but it is also a layout that is suitable, for example, when you need to archive things for legal reasons. And last but not least, it's a data representation of the digital form as well. So everything that are put into the forms are structured data that you can use to automate processes and save data in different base systems and stuff like that. You have the possibility to have public forms, totally public forms that can be filled in by anyone, but you can also require authentication when you fill in a form. This is mostly used, so then you authenticate with SigniCut. This is mostly used when, for example, you have pre-filled the form with some personal information, and this form instance is dedicated to one customer. So these 2 types, and then of course in the end, when the application or whatever it is, then you do the digital sign. It has multi-language support, so you can have a form in many languages. I continue. Okay, now clicked on the computer. Digital sign, of course, with SigniCut, so single sign, but also multi-sign, of course, if it's company onboarding or any application or any digital forms that are business to business, where you have multiple people that need to approve something. We have integrations with different data sources, and this is for both for pre-filling with data from an external source, for example, get company information, get personal information when the person fills in the organizational number, but also we can directly validate the information to internal system or external data sources when the form is typed in. There is a pretty rich library of field types. We have free text fields, date fields, matrix questions. You can upload attachments to a form and so on. So you can pretty much everything you need to create a very rich digital form. You can define visibility rules, and this together with the field validation is of course very important and very powerful compared to static web page or static PDF, because as I think Jan Erik mentioned it, one really time-consuming thing that administrative departments face are that they need to complement information from their customers. They fill in the forms wrong, they mischeck some checkbox. So with this functionality, you can have a rich field validation and then steer the customer so they fill in the correct fields depending on what product they choose or what type of customer they are and so on. You have two types of layouts. You can have a single page layout or you can have a wizard like a digital form with multiple pages to make the experience a bit simpler probably for the customer. Then last, a little bit technical, but there is also a JavaScript API to do more advanced customization, and the REST API to integrate with the digital forms, get the answers, but even to pre-fill data in the form before you send them to a customer. Okay.
I think you lost the camera actually, so could you check that?
I lost the camera?
Yeah.
I can see myself.
Camera is back.
Okay.
Now yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm here again. Actually, it's not that important to see me. It's more important to see the screen. Okay, before we go into the demo, just short. This is the signing flow. A person fills in the form, optional authentication, to open the form, and the person fill in the data. They are signing and are redirected to Signicat, multi or single sign. And then what we will not talk that much about today is the business process automation engine that we also provide, where you can create your own business processes. That BPA is integrated, of course, then with your own system if you want to use that. Okay, so let's go into the demo now. We have time, so I will give you an overview of the tool and just a short example of a KYC form that one of our customers have created, and then I will try to create a simple form in 2 minutes for you. So I will share my screen. And put on my glasses. I can remove this one. So this is the tool, and of course 10 minutes is a little bit short of time to show everything, but it will give a brief overview of it anyway. This tool has 3 areas. It has the form structure, where you can see that a form is divided into pages and sections, and then questions and answers. So here you navigate through the form, and if you click, for example, here, it will navigate to the right place so you can edit. The middle one is the configuration of the different questions and text and visibility rules, validation, all this stuff. So here is where you define how a specific field of the form should work. And to the right here, you have the preview, where you have the web layout, and you can have a different PDF layout. So you can in real time see exactly how the form looks when you create it. I will go through a few of the settings, a lot of settings, so we will not have time to go through everything. You have CSS settings, and that is to create the look, so it corresponds to your design guidelines. And you have publishing. This means that you can have a digital form published, different version of the form can be published, and you can keep them unpublished until you're complete with the new version and stuff like that. You have a data source feature. I will not show it today, but this is to, for example, integrate with external data sources as Roaring or Bisnode or anything like that, or even Signica to provide this data as well. Then you configure the e-signing, and here you see that you can have one signing party, or you can have additional signing parties. I mean, up to no limitation, I guess. I will remove this party now. And here you also configure how Signica will handle the sign, if it's going to be with Swedish Bank ID, Norwegian Bank ID, if you want the notification, Signica send the notification by SMS or email and stuff like that, retention of the invitation to sign and stuff like that. So everything is seamlessly configured in the forms here as well. If we go into some details about the form design, I will expand this a little bit. So you see the preview here. So for example, this is not the complete KYC. It's just for demo purpose. So if you see that, oh, why do you don't ask this question? It's just because it's a demo thing. For example, if I want to add a new field here for personal information, I can just add a new question here. Question 2, and you see it will appear immediately here. So it's really simple to see what you're doing. If you want to add, I will remove this question now. If you want to add another option, for example, down here on purpose of investment, I can just really easy add another option, Bitcoin, and then it will show up. And here you see this form is enabled for both English and Swedish, so I need to put in the translation as well. Here you choose the field types. As I talked about, you can have date and time, date interval, file upload, free text, matrix questions, which is, for example, like this, where you can have rows with multiple questions in it. Here you also see example of the visibility rule. When I click yes here, another section is open, which is very powerful. So this is an overview. I will not go into validation possibilities and visibility rules and stuff like that because we don't have time. But just to show you how the signing works, I will now publish this form that I have prepared. I will save it. I publish it as an anonymous form, which means it is public. I take this test link and I try to take a new tab here. So now I haven't made any fields except this first name, last name, person number mandatory, so I don't have to fill in the rest of it. But this is how it looks. The user can switch between Swedish and English here as well. So I will fill it in. Okay, actually, we could do like this. I will expose my personal number for you. I gave the consent to myself. And then I fill in other stuff here, of course. And then finish and sign. When I click here, I will be redirected to sign this with Signica. So you will get into the common bank authentication. I will not continue from here because I had some demo ghosts just before this webinar. But what happens here is that you're redirected to Signica to preview the PDF representation of this form, and then you can sign the application. Okay, I said create a form in 2 minutes. Let's see if we can do it. So I will close down this one and I will create a new form. So this is how you start. This is an English form. I will call it test. I will create a new page that is called page 1. I will create a section that is called section 1, and then I will create a field called name. Here you see that the preview is showing you what you're doing right away. I will choose the name field to be a free text field, and then I will add another question called choose product, and then I will say product A, product B, product C, and now this field is a drop-down field, but I can change the layout of it. So probably I want to have buttons instead, and then it will look like this, or radio buttons if only one should be able to choose here. And this is how you proceed. I can create another page, page 2, and then we start on page 2. I create a section here, section 2. So now this form has 2 pages. So you see, when I click here, I will come to the next page. So this is how you do it. Of course, you don't create a full KYC or onboarding form for a company in 2 minutes, but I just want to show you how simple the tool is. And we experience that many business people who get this tool, they are very happy and what do you say, upprymda in Sweden. Now I talk Swedish, but because they get a tool to produce things themselves. Before they probably had to wait for IT department to create and publish things that they want to achieve. So they get very productive very fast. Okay, Marcus, is it something I should add? Or are we fine like that? I think that demo is enough for now. If you want more deep demo, please contact us and we will give you a more detailed demo.
Thank you, Erik. And I think we hand over to Jan-Erik again.
All right, thank you, and thanks for the demo. It was really interesting to see, how fast it is to create forms. And I also like what you said, a different representation of the forms, which is also really important. I mean, the one on the web, the PDF, and the representation, and also what you're digitally signing, right? Just a very amusing thing I saw on that. There was somebody had a form that was printed, and you fill it in by hand, and one of the fields were a checkbox saying, "I'm not a robot," and they had, of course, checked that one. So I found that, an amusing example of this. Yeah, to the audience, I think we're running out of time, but we still have open up for a couple of questions. Let's look at the results from what we asked you, and we asked, have you ever abandoned a digital onboarding? And remember, the number from the research we did was 63%. 85%, okay. That's a high number. So, I mean, I guess the audience here is even more demanding of these solutions. So let's look at the next Menti questions, where we asked, do you have a need for forms? And then, obviously, yeah, a small percentage don't and are not sure, but some have it, and yes, there is a need. I mean, there's so many forms we use all the time for all kind of different purposes, and I really like the way you show this. The last question we asked was, do you have a fully digital onboarding? And yeah, okay, most organizations don't, which is, again, I guess, back to why we have this high abandonment rate. And also back to where we can and Sweet System can help out. So one of the questions we got here to Erik and Marcus was, how do you get started? If I'm sitting here now. I want to, hey, this looks really exciting. I want to try it out. What do they do?
Well, of course, you need to contact us first to begin with. But I think it's quite easy to depends, of course, your ambition. But to start with, maybe a few forms, and you need to publish it for example, on your website. It is of course easy, and we can handle the technology behind for you, so you don't have to install it in your environment if you don't want to. And then, of course, there is a part where we need to do some work. One thing is, of course, the design part. How does the template, how should it look? And then we start with producing maybe the first template or the first ones. But then we will train you, and you will have the possibility to make the forms by yourself afterwards. I think there are some technical things as well, Erik.
Actually not. You need an account with Signicat, and you're good to go. Then, of course, when you continue your journey, you want to integrate the result of the form collection with your internal systems. But from the beginning, you can get the result as the PDF and the data representation and put it into some CRM system or something or even email for further handling. But to get the digital forms up is fairly easy, and you will get it up in a month or 1.5 months from the beginning of the project.
Not in 2 minutes.
Not in 2 minutes.
Right. Yeah. No. I mean, there's a lot of things you need to set up and so on. So yeah. So you're saying from I sort of sign up and get started within a month's time, I could have something in production while using forms and signatures.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. And then I think we need to be closing down because we're over time already. But can you mention some customers that are already using this solution?
Yes.
Yeah, we have, of course, banks and financial companies, both here in Sweden, of course, and in the Nordic countries. Maybe I shouldn't give you the name of the companies here and now, since they are. I don't know. We haven't got the okay for that, but it's medium-sized banks, quite. What do you say? Not startups, but banks who don't have maybe a legacy so much. But as well, we have the large banks here, which are, and they need this kind of solution, sometimes as a complement to what they have today.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you. And I guess the answer is then, I mean, if they want to have more references, get in touch with you guys on that. And final question before we close down: is there a limit to how and where you can publish a form?
A limit how you can publish a form. I don't really understand the question, but you can publish it as I described, if that's correct answer to it. You can have an anonymous form that can be exposed on your homepage, but it can be behind authentication as well. So this is the types, really. If that, I'm not sure I understand the question.
Right. So, I mean, I think you mentioned, I mean, this is about the business processes, right? So you want to create a flow from the user, and that could be, for example, if I'm logged in already and I, apply for a loan or whatever, then that could automatically trigger the flow and then the signing, if I understood correctly, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Okay. Guys, thank you so much. It was interesting to see this demo. Also, that you have all this experience in digitization and value adding the processes, making them better and fully automated. So thank you for joining, Erik and Marcus, for giving the presentation. Thank you to everybody that listened in and for the questions we received, and also for joining the Menta. It's always interesting to see what are your opinion on this. When the webinar ends, there will be a feedback form. We would appreciate a lot if you fill that in and give us some feedback. And also everybody is going to get an email, follow-up email with a recording, so you can rewatch it or share it with somebody else. And of course, if you want more information, get in touch with Signicat or with Sweet Systems. And also, if you want to look at other webinars, go to signicat.com, click resources. There's a lot of information out there. So thank you, Eric and Marcus.
Thank you.
Good to have you.
Thank you.
And then thank you, everybody, and hope to see you again soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.